Good Friday afternoon. Welcome into Countdown to Game Time. Lee K. Howard alongside Alex Walker. Alex, we have been talking about football season for seemingly 9 months. We're finally here. It is football season. Toledo comes to Lexington this weekend, and it's time to actually talk about some games.
It's finally football time in the Bluegrass,
That's right?
And there have been so many storylines that we've, like you've mentioned, we've discussed, we've dissected, we've analyzed. And like us and like Mark Stoops, he's been very adamant this week. I'm so glad talking season is what he calls it is over. He just wants to focus on his team. And on Monday at his press conference, my big takeaway was he's just eager to see what he's got. Because you think you know the identity of your team, you think you know the pieces you have, but you don't really know until you match up against somebody else and find out what they're capable of. And we'll get a little sense of that on Saturday.
I think one of the things that he's most eager to see is some of those young guys, how they play. We've talked about the inexperience at certain spots, especially the secondary. And Stoops said yesterday following practice, he said, really, there's only one way to get those guys experience, and that is to get them out on the field. So he will get a better idea tomorrow what he has, where maybe they need some depth added, where some guys need to step up. But, you know, another thing I'm really excited about to see, Alex, is the running backs. I want to see how they divvy up those touches. Eddie Grand said earlier in the week, all three running backs will play. It's just a matter of how much they will play.
And on the depth chart, there wasn't a 1, 2, and 3. There was a 1. It was A.J. Rose. But then the 2 and the 3 just had an or. And we asked Mark Stoops why it had an or, and he said, because they're all good. They're all going to play. There's no separation between Kavasier Smoke and Chris Rodriguez. They're two talented backs, and they all bring different looks. That's what's great. It's not like you have it's not like you have 3 backs that all have the same style.
Right.
Chris Rodriguez is kind of a Benny Snell type. He's going to ram it down your throat, get those 3rd down yards, 4th down yards. Then you got Kavasier Smoke, who's that speed back. Then you got A.J. Rose, who's kind of a combination of both, which is why he is the incumbent starter coming in there. So, yeah, like I said, you know, you'll love to see those running backs. I think you hope you build a lead early on in this game and let those running backs just work the defense and wear Toledo's attack down.
I think where Kentucky has a real advantage on both sides of the ball is that line. The Kentucky offense and defensive line compared to Toledo, compared to the level of MAC, is going to be a noticeable difference tomorrow. So I think the game is won and lost at the defensive and offensive lines. And Kentucky certainly has one of the best in the SEC, maybe arguably in the country. They've got guys back with playing time, with experience. And I think if you look at one area where Kentucky could really impose their will, it is at the defensive and offensive lines.
And if Toledo has a chance, it's going to be through the air. It's going to be beating Kentucky deep, putting some early points on the board and putting pressure on Kentucky's offense. The one way you beat Toledo's passing attack, if that defensive line can set the tempo early and get pressure on Mitchell Guadagni, the Toledo starting quarterback. He's a senior. He's a talented guy, but if you can get pressure on him early, rattle him, get the crowd into it early, I think that'll put a lot of pressure on their attack and let those young corners settle in versus having to, have that baptism by fire moment where they're throwing, over your head to start the game. You want to put pressure on the quarterback early, make him think a little bit. That way those cornerbacks, those young corners, can have time to adjust to that first game.
And Toledo is a team that will take some shots. They're going to take some shots down the field. Now, the good thing, if you're looking at it from a Kentucky standpoint, is the Rockets graduated their top 3 receivers from last year. So they don't have a lot of experience back in their receiving core, but they're still going to take some shots down the field. They're going to throw the ball more than they're going to run the ball, certainly, but they've got a running back that many Kentucky fans are very familiar with, and that's Bryant Koback, who began his college career here at Kentucky before transferring to be closer to home there at Toledo. You can bet he is going to come into this game with, something to prove. It wasn't like they ended their relationship on bad terms, but anytime you play a team when you're going to know the guys on the other side of the ball trying to tackle you, that's certainly going to be something that I think Bryant Koback is going to come into this game very energized.
Yeah, Mark Stoops mentioned that on Monday. He said, look, this Koback kid, he's good. And he mentioned they didn't end on bad terms. They ended, it worked out for both guys. And like you said, he's gonna come in here hungry. He's gonna come in here motivated to prove that he is a SEC level of running back. And Mark Stoops was very complimentary of him. He wasn't saying, this guy, whatever. He kept saying, look, he's good. He's talented. We wish him all the best. Probably not on Saturday, but the rest of his career and see what he does. But I'm interested tomorrow also. I think Mark Stoops is hoping his team is disciplined, at least early on. When you have a noon game to start, it can be really sluggish, really sloppy to start. You don't want to see a bunch of penalties. You don't want to see sloppy plays. You don't want to see turnovers.
Turnovers, exactly.
If you can go, first half, take care of the football, keep your penalties to a minimum, I think that'll make him happy. It'll also give his guys time to settle in and start to impose their will on Toledo.
And I think because of that, Alex, we are going to see more of a rushing attack even tomorrow than maybe what we're going to see for the rest of this season. I don't think what we see necessarily on Saturday will be a projection of exactly what each game is going to look like. But like you said, it is the first game of the year. They want to get their feet under them. I think they stay on the ground, and not more so than the passing game. Certainly Lynn Bowden is going to get involved early and often, and that may not just be catching the ball. There may be other ways that he gets his hands on the ball. But also Toledo, their team, they have some youth in some spots, but the place that they have the experience is actually where Kentucky doesn't have experience, and that is in their secondary. So Toledo does return a lot of players in their secondary that can make plays. So I think because of that as well, Mark Stoops and Eddie Gran dial back the passing game just a bit and try to get those running backs really going.
This is also a Toledo team that knows how to win. Like you said, mix of inexperience and experience, but this is a team. Jason Candle, it's his fourth year, 28-13. That's no laughing matter. I mean, the MAC is talented. You have teams every year out of the MAC that fight for those New Year's Six bowl games. You're trying to be that highest-ranked non-Power 5 team. In Toledo, Northern Illinois, teams like that are always in the mix in the MAC. And Mark Stoops did not. He said, look, remember a couple years ago when Southern Miss came in here and did what they did? We don't want a repeat of that with Toledo on Saturday.
And Toledo is a bowl team.
Yes, they
were a bowl team a year ago, certainly a talented team. Certainly not an easy game, despite the name on their jersey. Certainly not an easy game for the Wildcats to start the season with. You want to give a prediction?
Not a big prediction guy, but I will because you asked. I think Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins by 2 touchdowns, and I think that separation happens late. I think you could see a close, competitive first half. Noon games are always tough. Sometimes you come out, the other team scores a touchdown, and things start getting a little dicey. But I think Kentucky goes up maybe 21-7 at half, and in the second half, the running backs start to impose their will, tire out Toledo. So score-wise, I'll say 35-20. Let's give Kentucky 15 points, and they have a dominant Week 1 win.
I was going to say that's very close to what I was going to say. I think that Toledo certainly scores points. Kentucky's going to have to keep up with the pace, scoring points. There may be even a point in the game when Toledo is leading the game. But I think in the end, Kentucky finishes out about 35-17. I think ultimately the Wildcats impose their will and are able to run out the clock and secure the winning in Week 1.
I'm just ready to watch some football. Can't wait.
That is countdown to game time here right before the season opener for Alex Walker. I'm Lee K. Howard. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.